Okay. All right. Now our ID. Enter chapter D. Okay, so this is going to be that last bit of naming that we're going to work on. Okay? And so we're going to get the suffixes now. Yeah, sometimes I don't really like how this book has things laid out. I'm going to be honest. I will. There'll be a time where I'll ask for feedback, and the university asks for feedback. I actually would be interested in feedback, especially like, do you think I should cover ID sooner?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
are we doing ID now?
We are. Yeah. Yeah. So the IC and IDs, they don't really take a full lecture. So that's why they were listed always as like ICID. Yeah. Typically, they actually kind of get grouped up with another chapter, but they're both right next to each other in the book. I've put them next to each other in the lecture series just because they're next to each other in the book. And so a little bit less confusing on why are we here. But I actually think ID maybe should get moved forward. Yeah. All right. So this is going to be your basic system for naming a variety of functional groups. Notice again you have your prefixes, which we've done quite a bit. These are going to be things that are going to have the locations and the substituents right here. Those are going to be your prefixes. You're going to have your root right here. That's your parent compound. It'll indicate your longest chain or ring of carbons. Also your presence of carbon double bonds and triple bonds. Okay. And then you have your suffix. So far, those have been those functional groups. Remember again, there's a difference between substituents and functional groups, right? Functional groups are going to show up in your suffix. And those are going to be the things that are like there are going to be other things than halo, nitro, ether, the enes, the ines, the anes. Those are all in the, the enes, ines, and anes. Those are in your root. Your nitro, ether, halo, those are in your prefixes. They're substituents. Okay? Okay. So we're going to start covering things that are your suffixes. Now, realistically speaking, there's no way I can cover every single possible substituent and suffix functional group that you could ever run into. Like, that just is impossible. Okay? But I'm going to give you enough of the naming that you can figure it out from there. Okay? There's a bunch of them you may or may not run into, and I just can't cover. Okay? Okay, so again, these are our basic naming. Number 1, you determine the highest priority functional group that's present. Number 2, you establish the main chain or ring. That main chain or ring has to contain the highest priority functional group. Okay? And this is where this differs from the previous rules. We had started mentioning this and talking about this, but we had never gotten to it yet because I had not covered functional groups yet in significant detail. We established the main chain or ring. Again, it has to contain our highest priority functional group. We add the appropriate suffix. You choose the suffix that corresponds to your highest priority functional group. You remove the E from the normal ane, ene, ein. By the way, this is why you get like enols. That's a functional group, all. You get ene from the parent name, right? Which is the double bond. Okay? And then we'll add that suffix that corresponds to that functional group. Now, the one exception to this, and the exception you might run into, is nitriles. And curse IUPAC, okay? It's not my fault. I would not have made that exception. I would have kept them consistent. But for whatever reason, IUPAC has decided that nitriles will be an exception to this, okay? Next thing you're going to do after you have your suffix for your functional group and you've decided that's your parent name is you're going to number the main chain or ring that is your parent chain or ring. Okay? Again, that's going to be the one with that functional group that you're getting that suffix from. You're going to add the locator number for the highest priority functional group. Remember how you go like the functional groups dictate that numbering first? And then only if you don't have, if you have equal numberings for those, do you do the other rules for determining the locants. So the locator number for the highest priority functional group, that is going to be your lowest possible number first. Okay? You're then going to add the prefixes and the remaining locator numbers. Okay, now what are the priorities of these functional groups? This is the priorities of the functional groups. Right here. It's this table here. Okay? So priority 1 is going to be this functional group right here, which is a carboxylic acid. This right here is the suffix name. That's going to be oic acid. Okay? As in like carboxylic acid. Okay, if you have to do it as a prefix because somehow you managed to get something as a higher priority to it, or you get another carboxylic acid on there and it can no longer be on the parent chain, you would use carboxy. Carboxy is the prefix for carboxylic acid. So functional priority group 2, this is going to be the second priority. This one is the acid anhydride. See this red part of the functional group there? That's what that looks like. Okay, and that is going to be, you're going to drop the E from the name. You're going to put oic anhydride. And so it's very similar to carboxylic acid. You just end it with, instead of acid, anhydride. Right here, this is going to be the ester, as in like esterification. Or esters as in like fatty acids. This is going to actually have a section that we have to talk about, which is D4A, because the naming's a little bit more complex than we can handle in a table. Okay. This right here is the acid chlorides. It's going to be oil chloride, and if it's the prefix, it's going to be that right there, chlorocarbonyl. This is an amide, and it's going to have the suffix amide. You need to remove the E again. By the way, do you remove the E or not is dictated by it being a vowel, in case you're wondering. Because it's difficult to chain E and O or E and A whenever you're saying it. So they remove the vowel, the E. Okay, and this is actually going to be a carbamyl if you are using it as a prefix. Okay, so this one's nitrile right here, and its prefix is going to be cyano, and this is where that like difference is. You're not going to remove the E here from the root, and so it'd be like alkane nitrile. Okay, and then this one's the aldehyde. This is going to be Al at the end. This is the ketone, O and E. These are both oxo, by the way, if you have them as prefixes. It's the position that's going to determine whether it's ketone or aldehyde.
Do you use it as a prefix or as a suffix?
You use it as a prefix if you can't use it as a suffix. So let's say that you have a carboxylic acid and ester on the same compound. Okay, the carboxylic acid is going to be used as the suffix because it has the higher priority. And then you're going to go, oh, I have an ester, so now I need to use that as a prefix.
But it doesn't have a prefix.
Well, it does in this section. We have to discuss that prefix. So let's say you had an acid chloride. That would be a prefix if you have any of these. Those would be your suffixes. Okay. This is your alcohol, by the way. Notice it's very low in terms of the priority here. That's why you kept getting things that were taking priority over it. This is ending with OL, and if you have to use it as a prefix, this is going to be a hydroxy. Again, these are the functional groups. Okay. This one right here is the amine. So, like if you had this and you had a propyl, it'd be propenamine. And then this was an amino when you have it as a prefix. By the way, amino acid. Why is it called an amino acid? Yeah, the amino has lower priority, doesn't it? Carboxylic acid has higher priority, doesn't it? Yeah. So that's why it gets called amino acid. Okay, so let's talk about naming these alcohols and amines. Here we have some examples. So again, we have a propane here, right? And so this is going to be propane 1-ol. Now, I find it really funny that they've bothered removing the E anymore. It really doesn't make any damn sense to bother anymore because they're putting
The
the,
located number, yeah.
yeah, it breaks up the naming anyways, right? So it's totally unnecessary now. But it's a holdover from back in the day. The locator number used to be in front. And so you can say propanol back in the day. Yeah. It's kind of stupid and silly, but anyways, you'll still see that quite often if you look up compounds online. Most people like saying that, so you'll encounter that actually more often than the new IUPAC. Okay? People hate the new IUPAC naming. It's not that new, by the way. It's like 15 years old for like even the youngest ones of these. Okay, so this right here is going to be propane 2-ol, and that's because it's on the second position, right? This one right here is ethanol. Why is it only ethanol, no locator?
No one has understood this one.
Yeah, you have no other options, right? Yeah, it doesn't matter where it is because it's always one. Cyclohexanol, same reason, right? And the number 1 position is always the first position on the alcohol. Okay. Does everybody get the pattern there? Anybody have any issues? Okay. This one right here is the amines. Usually the best way to learn the naming is actually just to practice. So if you want to practice with me, here we have the pentane, right? It's going to go to pentane 3-amine. Okay. And it's the third position for that amine. Again, we would always pick the lowest numbering possible for that functional group. In this case, both sides are the same numbering, so it doesn't matter. Okay. This would be a case if we were to put other substituents off of here, the numbering could change based on those. Because it's the same numbering either way for this one. Okay.
So,
Mhm.
reason, so if it just has something on the one, you just completely ignore it. Or just ignoring the number 1.
In this case,
In all of them,
yeah, the lowest number always goes
we just.
to the functional group. To this thing you're going to put in
Yeah,
the suffix.
But like,
Yeah.
we're not writing the locator number of 1 anymore.
Yeah, we don't need to write the locator number for 1 in the vast majority of cases. Yeah. Only where we would have multiple ones of these would we have to worry about it. Okay, so this one right here, here we have a nitro on this side. This one right here is the amine, right? So that's going to be your functional group. And we're going to go nitro for the prefix. It's on the third position. We give it the lowest possible numbering. Okay. But we have to start from our suffix, right? From our functional group. Okay. And so that gets the 1. So 3-nitro, cyclopentane, amine. Okay. Anybody have any questions there? Nope. Okay. Notice here this ends up with a 6 because again we have to give our lowest numbering to functional group. Huh?
Because the highest priority has to be the lowest number.
Yep.
So that one has to come first in the numbering.
Your
even though
functional groups always have priority over substituents.
It's like, remember when we
Yep.
did the double rings, even if there was like a sub at the end of it, we still had to start with the double.
Yeah. Yep. So the easiest way to summarize it is your suffix always gets highest priority, always gets the lowest number. Okay? And that suffix is always your highest priority functional group. Okay? Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? Nope. Okay, now these right here are going to be substituted alkenes and alkynes. And all you do here is remember the enes and ynes, they end up in your parent name. Okay? And so you just modify the parent name with your functional group suffix. So here's the example with a double bond here. We have the 4-chloro, cyclo, hex, 2-ene, because it's a double bond right there on the second position. Again, our numbering gets dictated by the amine. Notice, though, you always do minimize the other numberings from there as much as you can.
So why does that one have a 1 amine?
Hmm?
Why does that one have a 1 amine? Because we know amine has to be first.
Mm-hmm.
So why does that have a locating number?
In this case, just to differentiate it. So that's why I was saying that,
It's just there to help it stand out.
yeah. It is there because technically you could have a 1, 2 here, but this is higher priority, yeah. So you don't have to put the 1s, and in cases where you don't have anything else in these suffixes right here that are near the suffixes, you typically don't put the 1s. But in cases where you do have something in the suffix, you typically put the 1 to stress and make sure people don't get confused, essentially. Because remember, the ene would have had priority over the chloro if you didn't have the amine. But we do. Yeah.
So now we don't start with double bonds or triple bonds. We start with where the functional group
Yes,
is.
yes. This is now the higher priority over anything that's in the parent name. Okay. Okay. So these right here are going to be your alcohol with a double bond and a straight chain. And in this case, we actually have 2 double bonds. So remember that would be di for 2 of them. And then you put the lowest possible number for each of those. And so we have hepta, 4, 6, diene, and then that's going to be 2 ol for the alcohol. Okay. This one right here has, again, your alcohol in the 4th position for the hepta. Notice, again, here we would have had an equivalent numbering, 1, 2, 3, 4, from the other side. And so we choose this side to start with so we can get the lowest numbering on that triple bond right there. Okay? But only because it has equivalent numbering either way for the alcohol. Okay? If this had lower numbering for the alcohol, we would choose that. Okay. Remember, this is a language, so as long as you can get your point through, and when you're out in the industry and working, I would call that a win. Okay? I'm going to try to teach you as best I can, but it is a language that was made by humans. It is, sometimes the rules are a little and they should probably clarify on some of these rules. And sometimes they should ditch the old rule because it doesn't make sense anymore. Okay? But they have not on some places. Now, let's look at ones that have an alcohol and it has an amine. And so the highest priority functional group is going to receive both the suffix and the lowest possible indicator number, locant number. And the other groups are going to be given prefixes and listed by their alphabetical order, just like all the other prefixes were. Okay. The di, tri, tetra prefixes are going to be used as well where they're needed. For example, if we had 2 alcohols, that would be a diol, right? Di for 2 alcohols. Okay. This right here is going to be the one with your pentane. It has 5 carbons. And then we have the alcohol here. That's 1 ol. That's going to take priority. That's going to have your lowest number. And then you have 5 here, which is going to be the amino. Okay. This is a diamino right here. We have 2 aminos. They're on the 3rd and 4th position. We have 2 chloros. They're on the 2nd position, so 2, 2. And then we have the cyclohexanol. Again, it's the 1st position by default. You could actually put a 1 here to specify if you really thought you were going to have troubles, but typically that's only going to be done when you have something that is going to be right next to it that has locant number. Okay? So you typically only do it when you have an ene or an ein that you have a locant number there. Okay? Yeah. All right, so right here we're going to have an example where we keep that final E here. So we're going to name molecules with 2 or more highest priority functional groups. This is why I say that you should just put the damn E back in. And an extra thing for you to memorize. Thank you, Dr. Clausen. Again, not my fault. Damn it. Okay. Now, notice that if you add a di, tri, tetra, whatever, right? They're not vowels. Okay? And so they don't cause that problem of you having to say eel. Okay? Or ia. Or ei. Which is what would happen if you did ain, right? So like if you did ain and then followed it directly to vol, right? You'd have to figure out how to say eel. Okay? Now, if you were to instead say that, try that real quick. Ain dial. No problem, right? Yeah. Easy. And so when you add multiples of these functional groups, you can actually are supposed to keep the E. Okay? Now again, because of the numbering, it actually doesn't make any damn difference anymore. But they kept the old way of doing it. Okay? So again, your highest priority here, we have 2 of those, the alcohols. And so this would be 5-amino pentane 2,4-diol. Okay? This over here, I'm going to ask everybody to say this one with me because it's going to be a little bit more complicated. Everybody ready? 3,3-dichloro, right? Cyclohexane 1,2,4-triamine. Yeah, just take it one step at a time. There's nothing super complex about saying it as long as you just tackle it piece by piece. Okay? Okay. Can everybody see where that name comes from? Again, you have the 1, 2, and 4 for those amines, right? Okay. You're going to give those the smallest numbering possible by going through and round robining. Okay? So you go 1, then you have a 2. If you were to try to do it the other side, that would give you 1 and then 2, 3, right? And so that would be a higher numbering. Okay? If you were to start over here, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wouldn't it? So again, you'd have 1, 2, same as the 4, but 4 versus 5. Okay. Okay. Notice again, once you start numbering these, you number all of them. Okay? Because you need to indicate that's 3 different positions. Okay, practice. Give me that IUPAC naming. So remember, you should start with that first step. What's the first step again?
Find the
Yep, highest priority functional group. You got it. So figure out highest priority functional group. This will be actually the last piece of the naming that we hadn't had yet.
We're done after this?
Yeah, we have all the pieces for it. Yeah. So the only thing we're left on naming that I haven't taught you is just very, very like weird functional groups that don't show up a lot. And there's a few very extraneous rules that we haven't covered, but you will likely never see.
Are there any more inner chapters after this one? Or?
No, it's done. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you another minute here. By the way, I would love it if somebody joined IUPAC and put a proposal for just leave the fucking E on. It's like 10 slides of stuff I have to do because of that. And it's freaking useless. You can't even do it without the E anyways. Just put the damn locant numbers everywhere and leave the E. And then you have to memorize like 4 less rules. So.
It's just humans wanting things to be complicated.
I understand why they did it.
No.
It was historical, but when they made the locant number changes, they should have just made that change. It's silly. Hopefully one day one of my students will join IUPAC and they'll change it for me. I could not join IUPAC. I would murder someone.
So are there multiple ways to like use IUPAC naming to name a single substance?
Yes, but they're not all right. Yeah. Usually there should be there are edge cases.
Follow all the rules.
Yes.
And still be wrong.
If you follow all the rules exactly correctly, you should be right.
Yeah, but like if
There are some extreme edge cases where you can be wrong. You're one of the options. There are multiple options that would work. But those are extreme edge cases. And then most of the namings are just because somebody was wrong about something.
Okay, then.
So if you look the compounds I have you guys look up on the safety tables, you notice a lot of times there'll be like a list of names. It's like 10 names long, 20 names long. People are just getting IUPAC wrong. Yeah, happens all the time. And that's easier just to put those names in so people can find things than it is to try to make everybody be perfect. So, especially like chemical manufacturers. Okay, folks. So let's go ahead and move forward. So your priority is the OH groups, right? So they're going to be your highest priority. We have to name those as our suffixes, and those are going to be our highest priority functional group. Okay.
that doesn't make sense. Why? That's not the longest.
So again, the priority of the functional groups takes priority over longest chain. So your functional groups take priority over the longest chain. That's why the rules, when I introduced the numbering right here, determine the highest priority functional group is now 1, isn't it?
Can you go back to the priorities of functional group?
Hmm?
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
So
OH, higher priority than amine. And then double triple bonds are not functional groups. They're actually just part of the parent chain.
So what we learned last time where you always want to start it by the double bond.
That was because we didn't have functional groups yet.
But like, what if there was a functional group on those? And
Hmm?
what if there was a functional group on those? So we should start backwards, basically, is what you're saying? Start with these rules before anything else?
Yeah, these rules slotted in before the other rules.
That's why I feel like we should have done this one first. Started with the highest priority rules,
Yeah.
and then with the lowest priority.
So you are squarely in the camp of Dr. Clausen, do all the inner chapters together.
Well, or no, go in opposite order. If we start with this, so then like it's because I can do the other rules and
Mhm.
know the priorities of functional groups and still name them, but name them correctly.
Yeah.
So if we started with this, then
Well, it only slots in 2 rules ahead, but yeah, I understand your point.
It feels like because we learned to like do the parent like count the highest number of proteins, and that was the most important thing first, and then we went to double bond to the most important thing, and then now we're gotten to functional.
Yeah, we are slotting things ahead
Which is weird.
on top. Yeah.
Which is weird.
Or otherwise, I have to cover ID before IB, then IA. And then some of the rules that we need is an IA. So,
I feel
Yeah.
like maybe we should just do like the first unit, just do all the inner chapters and then.
yeah, actually, that's how I've done it in the past. But this book has them completely separated out. And so some of the stuff you kind of need from the other chapters. But again, let's go ahead and I guess we'll start with this one next time and try to name it on your own. And then we'll start here next time.